Attention low income and middle income Americans, because if you make less than $150,000 as a couple or less than $75,000 as an individual, then you are entitled to get $600 as an individual or $2,400 for a family. This is huge because stimulus check fever came back, and a number of lawmakers, analysts, and experts are finally pressurizing this administration to give another relief to millions of Americans. And you know what's the good part is that President Donald J. Trump announced himself the possibility of new stimulus checks, and he even said that he's going to approve these rebate stimulus checks, and this is huge. At the same time, what is the American Worker Rebate Act of 2025? And we finally have the status update on Trump's stimulus check. This is important for millions of low and middle income Americans, so make sure you stay with us till the end. But before I start the video, all I need is just a little favor. It takes 2 seconds to please hit that like button on this video. So without any further ado, let's start the video. So let's start the video with the details of this new American Worker Rebate Stimulus Act, and you can call it stimulus checks for low and middle income Americans. Look at this. What is the American Worker Rebate Act of 2025, and what's the status update on Trump's stimulus checks? This is important. If you make less than $150,000 as a couple or less than $75,000 as an individual, then you are in there for a treat because things are about to change. Well, look at this. The American Worker Rebate Act, the legislation introduced by Hawley that hasn't approved by the Senate or the House, proposes, well, this is important. And you must be thinking, if it's not approved, then why are we even talking about it? Then let me just tell you, this legislation was recently introduced by Josh Hawley. And you know, when Josh Hawley introduced it, right after President Donald J. Trump announced the possibility of new stimulus rebate checks for millions and millions of low and middle income Americans. And this is huge because right after a few days of that announcement, Josh Hawley came up with this very important legislation. And a number of lawmakers, analysts, and experts are saying that Josh Hawley introduced this bill after he got the approval from President Donald J. Trump. And the details of this new American Worker Rebate Act are indeed very important and very shocking. Look at this. Each working adult or child in the household receives a payment of $600, which would translate to $2,400 for a family of 4. You heard it absolutely right. $600 for every adult and $600 for every dependent. But there's a cap in it. Let's say if you are a family of 4, then you are going to get $2,400 under this very important Worker Rebate Act. But what if you are 5 people in the household? Well, no, the cap is at $2,400, so you might not be able to get the next $600, means over $2,400. Well, but what about the eligibility criteria? How you can be eligible for this new stimulus tariff rebate check from Trump administration? Well, there are some very important requirements, and here are the details. Decreased payments for millions of families earning more than $150,000, individuals earning over $75,000, and head of households making $112,500. So if you make over that amount, then there'll be a 5% deduction in your checks. So let's say that if the check is $600 and the 5% is around $60, but it depends. The more you earn, the more deduction you will see in your new tariff stimulus check. But the problem is that it hasn't passed yet because it's not even presented for a vote yet. Remember, there are 3 hurdles that this American Worker Rebate Act has to pass. Well, the first one is debate. There'll be a committee which will debate on this new American Worker Rebate Act. And after the debate, there'll be voting in the Congress, means House and Senate. There'll be 2 separate votings. And after the voting, if this bill or this legislation gets approval, then it will go to President Donald J. Trump's desk for final signature. And you know what President Donald J. Trump said recently? Well, he said that he's ready to approve these rebate for Americans. It's all on Congress' shoulders right now that what they are going to do with this bill. But the biggest problem is that even few Republicans are opposing this bill. And a number of lawmakers, analysts, and experts are criticizing these Republicans that why they never veto or why they never deny voting on the bill that is there to give billions and billions of dollars to other nations, while when it comes to giving money to our own people, to our own American people, what happens? They deny, they veto, and they block these bills. They never let these bills to even come on the floor for the voting. And this is the biggest problem. Recently, we have seen that millions of Americans are calling for some sort of relief because of the recent July inflation data that shook everyone. And what the data says, that 2.7% inflation is something that everyone needs to think about. Yes, the July 2.7% inflation number is shocking because it's higher than the last year's number. And last year, you know who was in power? Well, Democrats. President Biden or ex-President Biden. Well, now you need to understand that if President Donald J. Trump is going to fix everything, then the first thing that he needs to do is to give some sort of relief to millions of struggling Americans. And that's where these $600 or $1,200 checks for couples comes into play. Well, if President Trump approves this new American Worker Rebate Act, it will not change the financial situation of millions of low and middle income Americans overnight, but it will give them little breathing room so they can actually sail through these difficult times. But the good news is that a number of lawmakers are pushing this administration to change this amount from $600 to $2,000, as same as the millions of recipients received during the pandemic. If you remember, millions of Americans received $2,000 worth of stimulus check, and it was under President Donald J. Trump. So the biggest question is he really going to do this again? Well, this is the question that everyone is asking, and we are yet to see any response from President Donald J. Trump. So if you support this $600, then write in the comment section, I support $600 stimulus. And if you support $2,000 stimulus, then write in the comment section, I support $2,000 stimulus, because remember, your opinion, your view matters the most. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video very soon. Till then, please take care and have a nice day.